Welcome to Glow and Tell, a podcast about all things beauty, wellness, and business, sponsored by Artemis, the brand empowering the unsung heroes of beauty and wellness. Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Glow and Tell. My name is Delaney Allen Mills, VP of Brand at Artemis, and I am your host. And I'm so excited to be joined again today by Ariana Roque, CEO of Eddy Skin, who joined us on a previous episode. And we're so excited to have her back to speak to sustaining momentum through the highs and lows of entrepreneurship.
Hi, Delaney. Thank you so much for inviting me back on. I am so excited to be here. I loved our first episode together, and I'm so excited to be on another one.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited to have you. And I think that the topic today is one that is so important for entrepreneurs, even for professionals in the business, but particularly for those that own their own businesses, because the business of beauty is a business that goes through highs and lows. Every business has this, but beauty especially, we experience seasonality just depending on the type of product or service that we're offering. And, in general, business will just ebb and flow. So I'm so glad that you are joining us today to talk about how we can push through this as entrepreneurs and how we can really sustain that winning mindset while also doing practical work to make sure that we're really sustaining our momentum and continuing to grow through those slower periods. So I'd love to hear just a little bit more about, again, your background, as well as what you're working on now and how you've seen these kind of ebbs and flows coming into your business, given that I know that your business is primarily focused around skincare product.
Yeah, so I feel like there's so much that I want to say on this topic, but I know I'll take it back from when we first had our episode. There was a lot of momentum happening. I feel like there was just a lot going on that was really exciting. And I feel like all the work that I had put in beforehand was finally coming to fruition. You know, they say like you plant the seed and then you don't like reap it the first day. It's like, it takes time to grow. So I feel like definitely at that time I was just in such a great kind of consistency and discipline. And I do feel like a little bit afterwards and then on now, I feel like it's been a very slow season. And it's been
Mm.
really interesting because I just think as like a business owner, like your business is really your spiritual practice. You're going to go through so much and it's going to teach you so much. So right now I'm just in a period of learning to love the quiet days, the days that, maybe aren't as exciting and, I'm not getting the sales or, something it's not as I'll just say exciting, but I'm learning to really love that and live with that because with business it's all about ebbs and flows and still staying passionate and still sticking to your vision even when you're not seeing things come through, because that's when you should be disciplined and devoted more, and really appreciate those quiet times because that's when you can get your admin stuff done and things of that sort. But I think just definitely something that I'm working on right now is, still continuing with my one product strong. I'm so happy with my retinol and just really coming at it with really a time of reflection and
Mm-hmm.
seeing, okay, this is what's working, this is what's not working. And this is how I can, bring something new to the platform and especially, content wise. And it's really a time of evaluation for me is what I'm really going through.
Absolutely. And I think you highlight a few things here that I want to definitely touch on. But the one thing that I think is really important for folks when you are, seeing, either a drop in sales, if like you, there are folks out there that are selling product direct to consumer or, are trying to sell product kind of B2B, or even if you are actually doing treatments, aesthetic services at your business and you're seeing a drop off in certain services, just depending on the season, depending on where you are in the country. It's that, what you said about, I'm still one product strong. You're not making a reactive decision based on, a lull. You are really kind of taking the time to reflect on the data. You spoke to looking at reevaluating your content strategy, looking at, starting to evaluate and analyze, what am I doing right now? Where am I putting my energy? And what is really paying back in dividends? And what is maybe not working as well that I can shift in ways that will be the most impactful? I think that something that can be so easy to fall into is when we start to see our sales drop or numbers starting to lull, we can start to panic. And I think that sometimes that's like, oh, I need to get a new product, or I need to bring out, I need to bring out a new launch, or I need to reinvigorate this in some way that's very big and very expensive. And then ultimately isn't actually solving for the core root of what might be, what's causing this low traffic. So, I love that you highlighted that. And you also talked about passion. So I do want to ask, how do you maintain your passion when you are seeing those ebbs and flows, and when it is, scary as an entrepreneur to see those numbers fluctuating? How do you maintain that excitement and that passion for your business?
I love that, Delaney. So I think like one of the first things that came to mind is that quote when they say, I'm probably butchering it, but it's something like, when you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. I'm going to
Yes.
take it a step further. I'm almost going to tell you, like, I feel like that quote is like exactly what it's saying, but I also feel like it's even deeper than that because even on like I'll just say for example for me, I had one particular like really rough 3 weeks where
Mhm.
every single day I was questioning my brand, I was questioning everything that I was doing. I was like, what if it was just like 15 minutes of fame and all these great things and what if that was it for me? And then I just kept coming back to the work simply because I do love it. And I think that's where the quote really comes in. It's like, of course, it's so easy to like love the good days. It's so easy when I wake up in the morning and I see like I have emails, I got new orders. I'm like, oh yeah, like of course it's going to motivate anyone. But I think on the days where it's like, I got a bunch of no's from spas and, this thing fell through and all these exciting things that I had planned kind of fell through. And it's still kind of being like, okay, like I don't suck. My brand doesn't suck. It's okay. They say when one door closes, two doors open. And I think you really have to think about that as well when you're in business because you're going to
Hmm.
have amazing days and then you're going to have really crappy days and you're going to have days where you're going to have to phone a friend and cry it out and your friend's going to have to tell you, listen, it's just a bad day. That's it. It's just a bad 24 hours. You're going to wake up tomorrow. And I think that's where the passion has to come through. And that's why you really have to love what you're doing from the start. Because if you're only going to do something because you want the good days, you might as well stay with a 9 to 5 because like, it's more, I work a 9 to 5 as well, maintaining Eddy. And it's so great to see kind of, the comparison of really like two lives, like okay, if I stick with this, what my
Right.
life would look like. But I think it's really important, and I know that we definitely live in a time of like viral and things coming to us so fast, so it's really easy to think, okay, well, this isn't happening as fast as I want it. And I know Des from Bench and Course always says like you're in it for the long haul.
Hmm.
And that's why I think like it is easier for me to be able to handle the harder days just because I simply love what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And it really does, to your point, it speaks to when you are setting out to become an entrepreneur and when you're really looking at what is the unique thing that I'm bringing to the table? What is the sort of value that I want to bring? What do I see as the end goal with this? It's really important to consider also, can my why weather this storm of what I know is going to be something that, is going to have challenges along the way, is something that I might have to pivot in ways that are not ideal to me. It's one of those things whenever you start a business, things are going to come through that you never even knew were going to come through. You're going to have to learn whole new languages. You're going to have to leverage people who are experts in fields that you could just that are completely foreign to you. And, it is one of those things where, when your why is very strong and when you really know your why and you kind of have to repeat it back to yourself every day sometimes. And I think you also hit on a really beautiful but very practical tip of advice, which is, as an entrepreneur, having a support network is so incredibly important. Having friends, family, therapist, a coach, someone that you can call on in those times of need and I'm exaggerating or maybe not, but crisis, when we're feeling like, oh my God, let me burn it down because this is just so scary. Having those people that you can call that just can remind you of your why and can also remind you that this is temporary, that this too shall pass, and that as long as we are always operating from that place of being curious, I think curiosity is such an important factor of entrepreneurship. And I had a conversation with my business mentor the other day that really, really stuck with me. He is the CEO of our business. He has founded and been the CEO of other businesses as well. And he said to me that he comes into almost every situation, idea, suggestion of his with the idea that he's likely wrong. And
Mhm.
I just thought that that was so refreshing because it is something where, as entrepreneurs, when we're putting so much of ourself and our passion and we're pouring into our business and it's really becomes like our baby, it can be really hard to then extricate our ego from that. And so when sales go down, our ego takes that hit. Whereas if we go into everything with this really curious beginner's mind and think, okay, I'm testing the waters with this. Like, let me test this content strategy, or let me test this marketing strategy. Okay, let me maybe reach out to a couple of people and see if they might want to work on a partnership together. It's that curiosity that also carries us through. And to your point, in these slow periods or periods where we start to see decline, it's looking at things in a really holistic perspective as well. It's not just pinpointing, I'm not getting, more sales, or people aren't, coming for this treatment because of X, Y, and Z. It's really looking at the full picture. It's looking at, am I providing a world-class customer experience, for example? It's, are my services or my products visible to people? And if they're not, how can I get them visible to more people or visible to the right people? Am I properly targeting my consumer demographic? If not, can I maybe get someone to help me audit that or get someone to help me work on a strategy around that? And I love what you highlighted a little bit earlier, where you were talking about how you use quiet periods to really, do a lot of that thinking work where, a business can often be so go, go, go that we don't get that opportunity to take a step back and really say, okay, let me think. Like, are things really working for me? Am I working smarter, not harder? So, I think you raise obviously some really, really good points here. And also for a fresh business owner, I think that there is that initial excitement that comes with a launch, and you get a lot of bites. And, the same can be said for launching a new device, say at a spa. You have a new treatment, it's new and exciting. Maybe you have a launch event. Same thing with a skincare product. Maybe you do a launch event or some type of partnership. And then without that sustained momentum, things can start to fizzle. And even if you're putting in 100% effort, it's just the natural way in which these things work. So, how would you say, when that kind of ebbs, and flows for you, what are the really practical action steps that you take as a business owner, as a CEO, to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do now that I'm seeing that this is a trend and not just a bad day?
So I feel like it's so deep for me because I was working through this in therapy, and one of the things that I noticed part of my patterning, and I remember Desiree saying this in one of her lectures, that she took the attachment theory, not just through relationships but also with work. And I
Mhm.
have anxious attachment, which, if for those of the people that don't know, it's a kind of, you get very anxiously attached and you get very, self-involved, and you make everything about you in a way of like, this is failing so it's my fault, or
Mm.
you don't have follow through sometimes. And so I really looked at, okay, all right, Ariana, you do have this patterning of, when something gets hard, you will either, excuse my language, half ass it, or you just will give up entirely, you know? And it's even from small examples. Let's say I'm trying to figure out something on Instagram and I can't get the verification to go through, I'll just stop. I'm like, you know what, this is being annoying, I'm not going to do it. And with Eddy, you know, now that I feel like I have this huge responsibility of put this business out in the world, I just can't do that. I can't give up on it. And so when I do have those low moments, I tell myself, okay, what if you just take this one day and you go further than you thought you could? You know, and then you
Mm.
just do that every day. And then I feel like that's kind of what I've been doing. So, you know, when I get up and I'm feeling like, oh, I'm going to my desk and I'm like, oh, I haven't gotten an order and all these things fell through. Like, you know, what does this mean? I'll just tell myself, you know what? Still stick to your plan. Your plan was to reach out to 10 spas today, to schedule another pop up. You know, it's you try to do pop
Mhm.
ups quarterly. You know, what would happen if you just still did it? And, you
Mhm.
know, and you just kept doing it. And so it's almost like uh, making it more of a habit. And I think that just over time, you know, you start to see the fruits of your labor and then you're back on the horse again. And I just think that's really what it's about. I think it's about sticking to your plan no matter what's happening, no matter if you're seeing the results or not, you just keep going, you know? And I think that's really like the practicality of it. And I think that is just having a business as a whole. You just got to keep going, really. And that's what it means, like to keep going. You just keep up with the plans that you have
Yeah,
for yourself.
absolutely. And you say something so important and something that I think is just so interesting too, which is this idea of habit forming, which, it's so important that as professionals of any kind, but certainly as an entrepreneur, that you create the habit of consistently day after day, and I love that you use this just one day,
Mhm.
just one day I'm pushing further. Every day I'm pushing a little bit further because I think another thing that can become overwhelming for business owners in particular is feeling that you have to get everything done and everything perfect all at once. And that's just not how it's ever going to work. And when we try to do everything all at once, we end up doing most of it poorly, and so it's really that mindset shift of just saying, just for today, I'm going to move the ball a little bit further down the pitch. And then tomorrow, I'm going to just move the ball a little bit further down the pitch. And then you build this habit, to your point, and also a habituated behavior set of you are setting aside this time, you're creating space. I mean, I know you and I have talked about even just the fact that you created an office space for Eddy, and then that was something that you created so that you have that space that you are habituated now to go into and sit down and do the work on this business, even when the work is not looking the same as maybe you think it should be, or maybe you would wish it to be at a certain moment in time. And that's where those doubts start to creep in. But I think you also touch on something that's so important. We've certainly talked about it on the podcast in previous episodes with many guests, but it's the self-awareness piece. It's really understanding, like, to your point, attachment style is something that's so crucial to know about yourself whenever you are going into any business venture, let alone if you're a business owner, because attachment style in relationships, I mean, all of life is relationships, all of career is relationships, all of our business, it's a relationship, and also it's a mirror of ourself. And so when we have that level of self-awareness where we can say, I know that when things don't work out, I tend to, not follow through because I get frustrated and I think it's my fault. And, that those are such valuable insights that sometimes people, I think, are afraid to look under the hood to get to that. But oh my God, look at how it informs your business. So it's a hugely impactful thing. What I wanted to ask about Eddy in particular, and actually just even highlighting back what you said, it's like, you know, the question becomes, what if it all goes right? Right? Because we always are asking ourselves, what if it goes wrong? What if I fail? What if they all reject me? And to your point, like you said, I set out to email 10 spas today and ask about partnership. And what happens if that goes right? you know, then I have 10 new spas. That's fantastic. What happens if it goes wrong? Then I email 10 new spas tomorrow, and that's also it's a habit that you're building. And it's also just statistics and probability, right? So the consistency is what sets you apart also from other businesses. Like when you are consistent, you become unstoppable because you are building that momentum for yourself that can sustain you through anything. So I think that consistency, although it sounds so simple, it is one of the hardest things in the world to cultivate is consistency. And it is the key to everything that we want in our lives, be it personal, be it professional. It is, ooh, boy, is it hard.
And even with skincare, I preach consistency because it's not an
Hmm.
overnight fix. It's just not. And retinol is such a beautiful manifestation of that because with retinol, it doesn't really show the results right away. It takes at least 6 weeks. So,
Right,
a lot of people, I'll get a call or a text, 2 months later, and they're like, "Oh my God, my skin looks amazing." And it's like, it's not just because you did it last Tuesday, it's because you kept
right.
going and it was really the fruits of your labor. So, but there's something else that I wanted to mention too that I feel
Yeah.
like for anybody that is putting themselves out there in any way that I think is really important. And obviously I have a goal with Eddie, right? And every day I put myself out there, but something that really helps me as well is that I tell myself that if I keep growing, keep building, keep putting myself out there, even if Eddie doesn't succeed, I've still done something so amazing and opened up my life in a new way that wouldn't have been possible if I didn't start. And I think that's
Mm,
really important for people to understand and something that I like to preach a lot because I tell myself, even if I don't get in a spa, building that relationship for me is so exciting because it's almost like, oh, wow, like I've made a new friend, I've made a new connection, and who knows? Like, if I'm ever in your city or in your town, we can grab coffee. And I think that's really important. And I think that's something that, ever since COVID and having to
mhm,
work from home, and I think that we've forgotten how to open up our lives again, or, we feel out of touch or we don't know how to get to some place. And I think our dreams or whatever we're wanting is on the other side, they say of fear. But I think that the more you open up your life, the more that you open up interests and
mhm,
certain things, you're going to see so many amazing results. So I think that's really important. And that's something that I tell myself. Like, of course, I want Eddie to succeed, but I tell
mhm.
myself, Eddie has brought me so much joy, so many connections, so many beautiful gifts that I will forever be grateful for what it has brought to my life. And I think that no matter what it is you're doing, if you just put yourself out there and you work at it daily and you make those connections, your life is going to be better because of it.
I think that's such an incredible and healthy mindset because I think that so much to your point of the fear and anxiety that comes around entrepreneurship and even just starting a business is this fear and this attachment to this outcome. And of course, as entrepreneurs entering into a business, you want it to be successful. You have a picture of success for yourself. But I think also, to your point, it's about being present for the journey too, and really using it as an opportunity to build those muscles of interacting with people, of networking, of connecting. And, it could be that, you're reaching out to 10 spas a day in a slow period. And let's say, you get 8 rejections, but you get two that approve or two that bring you in. And then even from those 8 rejections, you get 2 people who keep you in the back of their mind and your product has been in front of them. And so it's something that you're just expanding your network, you're creating, you're being so true to yourself and to your business that only good can come from that, right? And that's, I think, something that we all fall into is we get really, really tied to one particular box of what success can look like for us. And I think that that is what creates so much friction and so much tension and so much stress for us. And especially in a business, because you're investing not only your financial resources, but you're investing so much of your time, of your energy. I mean, time and energy are the two most precious commodities in the world. We don't get our time back. Money we can make back, time we cannot. So, it is also that piece of just feeling into the journey and where are you going to maximize your time as well and your energy as a CEO. So I think that's also something I definitely wanted to highlight within the context of kind of ebbs and flows of business, but also seasonality of business is, where is the best use of my time as the CEO and where can I delegate? Where can I leverage specialists that know more than me? What are my strengths? How can I do more of what I'm really good at? And how can I leverage support and other resources for the things that I'm not as good at, that I don't necessarily want to develop in? Because there's also something to be said for developing in something that you don't necessarily feel as comfortable with. But if there's something that's just fundamentally not a skill for you, it's not something that you have to feel forced into developing. You can leverage other people to support you. It's not entrepreneurship is not an island that you have to sit on alone. In fact, there's so much value in owning and knowing your strengths, but more so in owning and knowing, your gaps and your opportunities for where you could bring in other people, or even just free support resources. Like, there's so much out there for entrepreneurs. There's so many podcasts, there's so much content, and there's just so many opportunities for you to meet new people, to your point, that you can then pick their brain, go to coffee, connect with them on LinkedIn. And more often than not, people are so excited to talk about the work that they're passionate about and get their brain picked and talk about themselves and their career and, what they really love. So, that hunger too for knowledge as an entrepreneur, I think, is so important. So on Eddy, I kind of just wanted to ask, just for, just more details from you as to, what that period looked like for you from initial launch, and, whether you saw like a big burst and influx, how you got that big burst and influx, and then what it's looked like since, as far as those kind of ups and downs, and maybe just a little bit more background about Eddy for those that haven't listened to our previous episode. I'm sure they would love to hear about it and hopefully love to check you guys out. The product is amazing. I mean, I can speak to it from experience, but I'll let Ariana do the talking on that because I know it's her passion project.
Oh, amazing. So I launched officially January 1st, but as you know and highlighted, before January 1st, there was so much work that went into it.
Mhm.
It took me an actual year to formulate, and then a year before that to actually find a chemist that I felt would be understood my vision, and that I felt we would, because I feel like with your chemist, you're entering a relationship, because
Mm.
I'm going in with a preconceived idea of what I want, and then she's able to tell me if it's even possible, you know?
Mm.
So that was really important for me. And I had the most amazing chemist, Nia, who I'm sure we'll link below. And she's just so amazing and really believed in my vision and allowed me to go crazy. Like, I had a list of ingredients I really wanted to try out. And then at the end of it, I said, well, is this even possible? I just put it together myself. I'm not a chemist, so I don't know. Um, so that was really like the formulating process. And then she sent me samples back, and then the day that I was able to give my green light, I was just so excited. And so before that, I was already kind of reaching out to spas, and there was one spa in particular that I said, hey, I have this retinol that I'm creating, would you
Mhm.
be open to trying the sample out before I green light it, because I love it,
Wow.
my family loves it, but I would like to get another professional. And so she was
Mm.
like, yeah, send it over. So, I sent it over, and then I wasn't, I had no expectations. And then I remember she sent me an audio, and I was so nervous to listen to it. I was like, oh my God, if not to be dramatic, but if she doesn't like it, I am going to cry. Like,
Right.
like I
Right.
already had this for a year. Like,
Right.
already, but like I had already gone further than I felt like was the norm to me, because I just used to give up
Mhm.
so easily. And anyway, so I was really proud of myself with just like taking all the hurdles that I was taking and just like still going through it, and whatever.
Mm.
So you get it. And she ends up sending me an audio like a few days later, and she's like, I don't know what the F you put in this, but I love it. I've given it, she said she tried like a few samples on her clients, and her
Mm.
clients loved it too. So I let her try it out for
Wow.
like maybe a month. So I
Mhm.
felt like it was like more than enough time. It wasn't just like a one use. And I sent her like a pretty big bottle, so she had enough. And so that was really kind of, it was the boost that I needed, truly. And so from there, I gave the green light. Then it was like, I think 6 months for Nia to really, custom formula. get it down. And then we went straight into stability testing, which took even longer, because I really wanted to make sure that it was going to hold up in all different
Mhm.
environments. That was very important to me. And then January 1st, I was able to officially launch. And I thought, okay, well, it could, I had really no expectations for January. I ended up getting into one spa in January, which was so huge for me. Then I had,
Yeah.
it was a dream. And then I had my first pop up in February, and my
Mhm.
goal was to sell 12 bottles. I sold eight. I mean, I
Mhm.
was so happy. I was like, in my head, I'm like, I'm going to give these away. I'm going to give these away. Like, I'm so excited to meet people
Right.
and just to get out there. And to my surprise, everybody was so supportive, bought from me.
Mhm.
It was truly, I will say, like, I get teary eyed saying it. It was probably the best experience of my life. I was able to see something that I did, and
Mhm.
people receive it, and that was really
Yeah.
important for me because I could make something, and people were like, that's cool, I'm not into that. So that
Right.
was just, I hope and pray that everybody can have that experience where they put themselves out there and it's received, and it gives them enough confidence to be able to keep going. So February was a dream. March was another dream. It was like I selling every week. I just couldn't believe the momentum. And then April came around, and April sucked. Okay, I'm gonna be so
Mm.
honest. It sucked.
Yeah.
I probably made like two sales. Very grateful for those two sales. But I went, had such dark thoughts. And
Mm.
I upped my therapy, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, am I not enough for this? Do people hate Eddie? And funny enough, actually, the next day my therapist had ordered from me, and I had said to her, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so
Oh.
happy that you liked it." She's like, "Oh yeah, I loved it," but she had never said anything to me. So I realized something. I was like, you know what? Not everybody is going to show their love, their appreciation in the way that you're used to. People are very different. You're going to have
Yes.
people that use your brand and love it and never say a thing.
It's so
They're
true.
almost like quiet about it. And then you're going to have people that are like posting it on Instagram, texting you.
Right.
And then I think that's why it's so important to just really stay confident in yourself and what
Mhm.
you're putting out, and know that you are putting out quality. And I think that's something really important that I wanted to also bring up too, because it's going to look different for everyone. So April really taught me a lot. April taught me about, that consistency, that discipline, that
Yeah.
still, after weeks of just being crickets, and influencers that I was going to work with just kind of, in a nice way ghosted me. And I
Mhm.
was just like, oh my goodness, like, what's happening? Like, is it me? Like, should I give up? And just having all these dark thoughts coming
Y
from like almost 3 months of amazing time. It took me
Right.
2 weeks to want to burn it all
Sure.
down. And
Yeah.
I think that's why it's so important to just stay the course. And
Mm.
I had said something to a friend the other day, and I said, I'm so scared because I don't know what the future holds. I am putting in all this work, I don't know what's going to happen. And she goes, the beauty is that you don't know, so you can create it. And
Oh,
so
I love that.
that's been the journey thus far. That's what I've been kind of working through. And so, even today was an extremely quiet day,
Mhm.
and I told myself, you're going to keep going. You're going to keep going. Even if you don't hear something for 6 months, you're going to keep going, because you don't know. You can work for an entire year and be reaching
Mhm.
out. And then one day, wishful thinking,
Yeah.
Taylor Swift posts about it, and then you
Right?
sell out, and you don't, so you just literally never know. So just keep going.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much great advice, number 1, but also just, like, such valuable insight, so vulnerable. I always love having you on the podcast talking to you because, yeah, you share, so vulnerably about your experience, and I think you highlight something so incredibly important, which is that, you were coming off of this high of 3 months of really incredible momentum and these, experiences of getting yourself out there, of being validated by, a professional in the business that represents the vertical that you're looking to get into in the spa space. And, then it just takes a split second. You could be coming off of a year of incredible performance, and man, oh man, does it take just a second to spiral. And so I think also to your point about consistency, that's what we do the work for. That's why we do that work, is for those moments. It's not that we pick up the work when we spiral and say, "Okay, I'm gonna start doing this now, and then when I'm feeling good again, I'm gonna put it down." It's like, that's why the work exists in the way that it does, because it prepares you to hold the space for that little moment of spiral, and there's no guilt and shame in it. It is scary when it is your money on the line, when it is your brand on the line, when it is something that you've put and invested so much of yourself into, of your time and effort and energy and countless nights and early mornings and sleepless nights. Again, looking at your business, it is like a baby that you're creating, that you're raising, and it is this thing that is very personal. It's incredibly personal. And I think that it just goes back and highlights that importance of really having a support network. And I also really encourage entrepreneurs to band together in community with others that are doing similar work to them, banding together with other beauty entrepreneurs that are selling skincare, that, maybe either are, further down the line in entrepreneurship, or are on par with you as far as you guys are going through the same growing pains together. Because I think that community is just one of the most important things in life in general, but especially when we are trying to create so much in the world. I think that, community is what allows us to feel seen, feel heard, and also keep going. So I love that you highlighted that again, and that quote from your friend is amazing. It's great
Yeah.
and so true. And what would you say, I mean, from your experience, given that you launched on January 1 for sales, what in terms of skincare products, because I have experience and can speak to our listeners who are in more of this kind of treatment space and in the spa field, around what the seasonality of those types of treatments typically looks like. But in the product space, like, have you seen any types of trends in seasonality, given that you have the one retinol product? I know it's pretty challenging because climates across the globe just vary so dramatically. But have you seen any types of trends yet in terms of, dips in certain seasons? I know that obviously you have a smaller data set for that.
That is such a great question. So I would say in terms of retinol, I definitely think the summer months it's a little bit slower just
I
because
was wondering.
yeah, just because, I know most people know this and a lot of your audience is so educated in the beauty industry. But it is sensitive to sunlight. So that's why I
Mhm.
always recommend, and most people recommend using it at nighttime. And they say if you're going to go out in the sun, that you shouldn't really be using retinol, just because, you just want to make sure we're being safe and not creating any hyperpigmentation that
Right.
we're going to have to treat later. And it does tend to make your skin a little bit more sensitive. So I would say, during the summer months, it is definitely slower for retinol sales as we're going into the summer months.
Right.
But I just tell myself, like, on the same train of thought, like I have no idea the goodness that's in store.
Mhm.
And, I'll extend that to everyone listening. Like, you have no idea how good it's gonna get for you, But I
Oh.
will say, like, it definitely during the summer months, I'll say it's definitely slower for retinol. And then I feel like it picks up around winter.
Mhm.
I think that's why January and February were really great months because I know I live in
Right.
Florida, so it's summer all the time. Um,
Right.
like it's always just one season. But I know in New York, I think New York is pretty still cold January,
Yeah.
February. And then California, I think it's also perfect weather. But, it definitely in the places that people are
Mhm.
more out in the sun,
Yeah.
I will start to see slower sales for sure. And that is just such a good question.
Yeah, I think what your answer is great, because you have that knowledge around it, and knowledge is power. So, also just understanding your industry and understanding, the trends and seasonality that tend to come from your particular treatments that you're offering or products that you're offering, and being able to work with that. Like, so as an example, I know a lot of our listeners own either med spas or wellness centers, or just, spas in general, that that offer body treatments, non-invasive body treatments, or some might be plastic surgeons' offices. And typically, the seasonality of body treatments in the beauty space is really it ramps up in the summer months, of course, because there's vacations. People are kind of going out, being in their swimsuits. They want to feel their best. They want to feel confident. They want to love the way they're looking.
Yeah.
And then we see a pretty significant slowdown in the winter months because people are, depending on the climate, of course. In Florida, you're always in your bathing suit, you're always in your shorts. California,
Yeah.
you're pretty much always, in a great weather situation. But in all of the other regions, we typically see that seasonal slowdown because people are, just like enjoying the holidays as they should. They're wearing sweaters, and what that can be for business owners is frightening, because they look at that and they see, well, this device has some body treatments on it, and they're going to ramp down in the winter. But that's also where, if you're looking at beauty technology and investing in that for your business, for your spa, look at functionality that is also going to be applicable to the face, because the face, especially as you mentioned before, in this post-COVID era, like, our face is how we're interacting with the world. It's how you and I are interacting right now. It's
Yeah.
always, it's always out. So really highlighting your facial business, if you are finding that you're being really seasonal in your body business, it's potentially doing marketing campaigns around that. It's reinvigorating your staff to be really excited about facials in the wintertime. It is, potentially running like some type of a competition for your staff of, whoever can get the most facial packages, gets, a Christmas bonus or a holiday bonus.
Yeah.
However you want to do that, it's just about having the knowledge that, okay, I see the trends of data, and I personally am just such a data nerd. I love to take a look at the data and take a look at analysis and really see how things ebb and flow, because then you can set up, to your point, you can start to plan around it, because there is some level of consistency in the seasonality. And, you can start to say, okay, cool. These are my busy months where I need to be really on, where my staff needs to be really on, where we need to be very much in execution mode. Whereas these are my months when I can really be in strategic mode, when I can really be in planning mode, where I can, start to maybe experiment a little bit and, kind of push out into partnerships, and I just have more space. So if we really look at a business as, a container of energy and of space, you just start to look at, it's just a mental reframe. It's like when it's slowing down, when things are slower, there's more space. You have more space. And so instead of kind of sitting with that more space and feeling like, oh my God, what do I do? I have so much, I don't know what to do. It's like, well, how can I fill that space in the most valuable way, and in the way that's going to also fill me up the most, and get me prepared for what I'm calling in, and what I'm actually inviting, which is that space to be full and abundant, right? So that's, I think, an important thing I would highlight as well.
I love that. And even just hearing you talk, you're just so amazing. I'm like, oh, I wish I could hire her for Eddie. But I think that's important for everyone listening. Like, taking the first year, or even, I'm still in the baby steps of everything because I'm not even a year yet. But I think it's important to really take a look at your first year once that year is up, and being like, okay, like, let's see if there's any trends this year. I know it
Hmm.
was super slow June and July, and then it picked back up in August, and then you had the biggest sale of your month in January. And then also, like, they say have an emergency fund in just your personal life, but I think even having like an emergency fund in your business, like, I have
Hmm.
a rule with myself right now. Everything goes into my business account and I don't touch it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm just watching it grow, and
Hmm.
I'm creating kind of this place for myself where I can have financial security in my business. So if I have a slower month, I'm not panicking, my nervous
Yeah.
system isn't on fire. I'm like, I'm prepared for this you know
Yeah.
so I think that's really important to into what you're saying, is like to be able to understand how your business runs. And then also, just once you understand, knowledge is power, and being like, okay, like,
Mhm.
I'm good, like,
Yeah.
obviously, I'm not going to, just because the summer months are slower, I'm not going to be lazy about it, but I am going to be, move with grace and say, you know what, Ariana, even if you are reaching out to 10 spas a day,
Mhm.
just prepare that you may not hear back right away, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But just keep going again, like what we
Yeah.
said, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think that you also just bring up such a practical piece of advice for business owners as well, which is ensuring preparedness, it both from a mental perspective, as that mindset perspective, but also from a practical and functional perspective of making sure that you are, putting away your acorns for those slower months, that are not that you're budgeting properly, that you're not overspending, that you are being mindful of your P&L, all of these things that if these are not your natural strengths, it's reaching out and leveraging the resources that are available to you, both, in terms of people and additional support. And even if, that's not something that's accessible to you in your business at the moment, there's so many free resources to start to learn about all of these different ins and outs. And preparedness is going to allow you to just, to your point, be able to take a deep breath and say, you know what, we knew this. We know that it's seasonal. We know that last year, June and July were pretty slow. So we can expect that. We've prepared for that. And we also have some really exciting initiatives that we're going to be working on because we have the space to do that. So, I think that all of that is just great advice. I have loved this conversation. I feel like we could talk about it forever. But is there anything that you want to say to kind of cap us off? Anything else on this topic that you want to share before I ask you a fun last question for the episode?
I do. I think this is important. Something I want to say, especially for the newer entrepreneurs out there that
Hmm.
also are having like a day job or a 9 to 5 that they're still maintaining while building their business. Don't be afraid to keep it. Don't be afraid to keep your 9 to 5 or whatever that is that's paying your bills for
Yeah.
longer than you'd like. Obviously, if it's an abusive situation, find your way out of it. But I do think it's important. I definitely think we live in a time where they're like, quit your job that you hate and go and manifest on the beach. And I think that's important, but I also feel like a lot of a lot of the reason I've been able to have more peace during this time period with Eddie is because I've kept my 9 to 5. And I
Yeah.
just think it's really important to keep the things that are keeping you financially at bay until you're ready to take that next step. And I just think that's really important as a business owner. You really want to, you don't want to be impulsive with your decisions because your business will take a
Mm.
hit. And so you just want to make sure you're protecting all your hard work and everything that you're doing and setting yourself up for success. So I just think that's really important. And I wanted to add that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's always this delicate dance of, when am I ready to take the leap and leaping too early? And then to your point, I think there is a big culture at the moment of, you know, burn to our point, kind of burn it all to the ground, say goodbye to the life as you know it, and and step into entrepreneurship. And it, for some people, that's possible, but it is also something that is really taxing. And we're in a difficult market at the moment. It's a part of this conversation that we haven't really touched on, but the economy is certainly changing and shifting. We're seeing the instability there, and it's impacting all industries, and it's impacting the job market as well. So it's important that that we have that financial security where we can feel like we can create from that. And it is important to take those risks and to your point, to do things outside of what you think you can do. But I think that that practical piece of advice of stay in your day job, commit to your business as you're growing it, so that you are in a position where when you do decide to step into that entrepreneurship full time, you are not just panicking, feeling that you're drowning because you can't create from that space. And that is not setting you up for that level of preparedness for success that we're talking about as well. So I think it's a really important one, and one that I think obviously, to your point, there's a lot of mixed messages on that one going around. So I think healthy balance there is good, and also just financial security is huge,
Mhm.
as an entrepreneur. So just making sure that you have what you need to be able to be successful.
Yeah.
All right, Ariana. Well, I'm going to ask you our last question. Again, you've answered our previous questions before, so I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball, which
Okay.
is if you could say, if you could give new entrepreneurs three things to do right now that would be the most impactful for them in their business and in their relationship to their business, what would those three things be?
Get out there and network. And network, obviously, you want to network with people in the field that your business is in, but also get out into different fields that have nothing to do with your business. That's so important to reach different markets. I think that's really important. I think the second one would be kind of what I touched on, making sure
Mhm.
that you're financially okay, because you just want to make sure that when a good opportunity comes, you can afford to put yourself out there in your business and be able to fund that. And setting up a daily routine for yourself, for
Mm,
your business, setting up a schedule for yourself and time blocking. I think that I would say that is the most important to keep yourself organized. You'd be surprised how much time we waste scrolling, doing things that won't necessarily, move the needle. So I think making sure that we're using our time, and I think time blocking is a really great way to do that.
absolutely. Those are great tips. Thank you so much again for joining us, Ariana, for a second time. Hopefully, we'll see you back for a future episode.
So
And thank you so much, Glow and Tell listeners. We will see you back here next time. Thanks so much again, Ariana, and have a great day.
thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Glow and Tell. Please like, subscribe, comment, and follow anywhere where you listen to podcasts. We'll see you next time.